if we were going for star power alone, I would tell you about the night Salman Rushdie had me pinned up against a bar at a movie premiere. But it's not a really good story because it was his back that had me pinned up and he didn't know I was there. So I'm going to tell you about a 10-year-long argument I had with my now husband and how a celebrity ended it for us. Now, a lot of people in long-standing relationships have long-standing arguments, household chores, finances, which way the toilet paper goes on the roll. Our argument was a little bit different. It went something like this. And if you know the answer to any of these questions, please don't yell it out because you'll totally ruin my story. So I would say, hey, do you remember seeing that show? There was like a really cool aunt and her niece and nephew, and they ran an ice cream parlor. And he would say, no. And I told you no the last 3 times you asked me. And I was like, no. Really cool aunt, really pretty girl, her brother, they ran an ice cream parlor. Do you remember seeing it? And he would say, no, you made that show up. Everyone you've ever asked has told you you made that show up. That show doesn't exist. And I was like, no. So this argument started like before the internet was a thing. But then the internet became a thing, and I was like, okay, this show existed, and I'm going to find it, and I became an IMDb addict. The problem is, you can't search for shows on IMDb by putting in really cool aunt, really pretty girl, brother, ice cream parlor. So what I had to do was watch TV obsessively, trying to find one of those characters, then type in the show that I was watching, then figure out who it was, and one day that happened. The woman, who was the really cool aunt, was on a Lifetime movie. So I figured out what Lifetime movie was on. I went to IMDb. I figured out her name was Karen Richman. And Karen Richman was on The Young and the Restless. And Karen Richman was in A Very Brady Christmas. And Karen Richman was the new Gidget. But Karen Richman did not seem to be on a show with a really cool aunt, a niece and nephew, and an ice cream parlor. And so someone less competitive or maybe more sane than I would have said, oh, I'm wrong. But I said, the internet is wrong. It's very early days of the internet. So this argument goes on and on and on, and then we move to Los Angeles. And I'm like, this is gonna do it, right? Like, it's just gonna magically all come together here. We hated LA, and we got invited to this party, and it was like a friend of a friend's party, but it was in our neighborhood, so location is everything, right? But it was raining, and like no one does anything in LA when it rains, because like rains, and people are like, what is that? I'm gonna stay inside for 3 days. But it was in our neighborhood, and we were still trying to meet people, and so we're like, fine, we'll go to this party. So we go to this party, and it's really crowded, and everyone is soaking wet, and we hated the party about as much as we hated LA. And we're like in the corner, and we're going like, okay, how long do we have to stay to not look like assholes? And in walks Karen Richman. And I don't know what happens to you when you see a celebrity, but I get really excited, maybe feel a little bit like I'm having a heart attack, but then it subsides, except in this case I can't breathe. Because there's Karen Richman. And I turn to my friend who had invited us to the party, and I say, that woman, cool aunt, ice cream parlor, that woman! And because I have literally asked every person I've ever known if they've seen this show, she knows exactly what I'm talking about. And she said, that woman is Karen Richman, she's my friend. It's happening. So my friend introduces me to Karen Richman, and I spew all of this on her. Keep in mind, I've been on her IMDb page so often that I think I'm friends with Karen Richman. She knows none of this. And she looks at me and she says, well, that was the new Gidget. And I was like, no, I know you play the new Gidget, but the ice cream parlor and the blah, blah, and she goes, yeah, that was like in 2 episodes. And so here I'm thinking, well, I'm sort of vindicated because I'm standing next to the cool aunt, right? But my husband's sort of vindicated because it was in 2 episodes, and somehow I've made it like the whole show. So I'm like, okay, well, we really hate LA, and we know we have to stay there another 2.5 years after this night. And what keeps me from losing my mind until we can make it back to the East Coast is maybe we move to LA just to settle this argument in a way we could both be right. So we're about 10 years after that fateful rainy night in LA, and my husband and I are still happily married, and we never fight about which way the toilet paper should go on the roll. So.